This is the official podcast for the Adelaide Football Club.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Weekly Crows podcast with our special guests Patrick Dangerfield, Joc O'Connell, Katrina Gill and yours truly David Burtenshaw. Welcome Patrick.
Thanks for having me, David.
We can't be serious, can we? We cannot be serious,
One would
Paddy.
have thought, Dave.
You
wouldn't have thought.
What happened before?
What else is there to actually talk to you about? I mean, pick up the paper.
Front page, back page.
Inside, outside.
Mum, dad,
special
sister,
release.
Tom Lynch.
Grandfather.
Lynchy.
Did they? Lynchy's another story, and we'll
Not sure.
get to that. But
I'm not sure they haven't interviewed anyone that I don't know yet.
I was going to say.
But, yeah.
Could you believe that? I mean, it was to be fair, a big story.
It's not that big a story, Berts.
But
I thought it was way over the top, Berts. But that, I suppose, is Adelaide media. They're a bit of a fishbowl environment here, Berts. But it was certainly well and truly over the top, I thought.
Tom Lynch, has to be said, we've been joking about him being at your house.
Oh, but
What is the story?
Well, he's at my house probably 3-4 nights a week for dinner. And yes, he was around.
Just snuck into the photo.
He was around Monday. Yep.
Will Young.
Well, Will's obviously he's. I've been living with Will he's been living with me for nearly 2 years. So we've been together a while. But Tom, you can't get rid of him. It's like a bad smell. He's horrific, Joc.
Yeah, he was pretty keen to get in on the photo. I was there, and he just said, "Get me in there, Joc."
You couldn't stop him.
He's trying to say that he had no involvement in it.
Oh, it's quite the opposite, Bert. You cannot get him. Like the photographer rocked up and he said, "Where do you want me? Which seat? I'll sit there."
He was actually in the middle, I think.
Well, he wanted to sit in the middle, and then the photographer had to say, "Listen, Tom, this is probably not about you. We're going to need you on the side." And he was filthy, but we eventually coaxed him to sit on the side, Bert.
And have you copped much from your teammates in the last few days?
Yep, everything I do is now related to dollars and everything.
Hybrids.
And jeez, Birds, didn't I cop an absolute shellacking for my tweet?
Try and do the right thing by a club sponsor. And
it's not even my car, Birds. Sorry, Robbo.
It was moved out the driveway, wasn't it?
Yep, the Jeep that's done 211,000 Ks is still there, Birds.
Anyway, so how have you coped with it all? It has been a pretty big week.
Don't pick up the paper, Dave. Don't pick up the paper.
You can't avoid it, can you?
No. Every time you walk down the street, Joc. But next week, I tell you what, next week you will not hear a thing about it, and all of a sudden it'll be
someone else,
which should be great. Yep, hopefully. The focus will change. It'll be Tippo, Taylor, Sloaney, whoever else is out, so it'll be good.
Now, for the last few weeks, we've been talking about wins. Weekend, not so good.
It wasn't a win on the weekend, Bert.
That's right, it wasn't a win.
No, it was very disappointing.
How the boys reacted to that?
They were very disappointed because we had last year where we were quite good at losing, and this year where we spent. This year we've obviously had an enjoyable season and played some pretty good footy, but. You certainly don't want to experience that too often, and we'll certainly be looking to rebound this week against Fremantle, who will obviously be looking to do the same because they also had a poor game. So I think it'll be on early, Bert. So our start in this game will be very important. Get on the scoreboard and shut out the purple haze, as they say, Kat.
What was the main theme coming out of the review from the weekend, Paddy? We heard David McKay was on radio last night, and he said perhaps the review was a bit different to what they expected. There was a few little things that the coaches weren't happy with, rather than just the last quarter as well.
Yeah, we just weren't clean, and we didn't adapt to the conditions as well as what Collingwood did. And if you don't do that, then you put yourself behind the 8 ball. And certainly we weren't clean with the footy. We didn't, with our forward 50 entries, as we're a bit shallow, and we were sort of bombing to the top of the 50 rather than being able to get deep forward entry. Into Tippo and Josh Jenkins, and we weren't able to do that. So this week we'll be, trying to do that. As I'm sure, 18 sides try and do that with their ball movement, but we didn't do it very well on the weekend.
It won't get any easier this week, will it, with that sort of defensive pressure? We know Freo and
Very
Ross
good
Lyon.
job.
Your man, Ross Lyon.
My mate, I've had a bit to do with him, but he likes to get numbers behind the ball.
Well, Lynchy loves Rossi. Absolutely loves Rossi. And hopefully it'd be nice to see Lynchy come in up against his old coach, because I know he has a lot of respect for him. But they've obviously done a huge amount of work on their defensive side of the game because they're very, very good at it.
And Big Sandy, how's Big Sauce going to handle?
Yeah, we had a step ladder out at training today, and we had it padded just so if we run around with it, Saucy doesn't hurt his knee when he's jumping on top of it. But it'll be certainly a tough challenge against him because he's a man mountain.
Do you as midfielders sort of have to bring it in upon yourselves more to shark it a bit, or?
Well, you certainly got to be able to read his hand well because the majority of the time, no matter how well Sauce is jumping, if bloke is 248 metres high, it's hard to get on top of him.
Yeah.
He's taller than the Westpac Centre job. So you've got to be careful with not getting too fixated on where we're trying to hit the ball, but also read where he's hitting it, and we'll be focusing on that.
Paddy, clearly people have heard enough from you because Ask Danger did not actually fire up this week. I don't know if it was the timing, but we've got a couple here, so we'll just run through them.
We've had enough, Bert. They have had enough. They can read in the bloody paper.
Perhaps we need ask someone else.
Yep.
But for now...
Ask Curly, ask Cameron Ellis-Yeoman. He's a funny bloke, Bert. He came over
might have to get him in.
night.
He's on the Twitter bandwagon now too.
He is.
We'll get him in. We'll get him in. I like those young...
dance moves.
I like getting the young lads in here, so we'll get him next week. But for now...
Sorry.
I'm trying to keep this on.
We're on a tangent.
Keep it highbrow.
Jazza Wheatley says, other than yourself, who could go in the All-Australian team from the Crows after round 9? It's a bit hard for you, isn't it? Because you don't necessarily see everyone else, every other team. I don't know how much footy you watch, but how do you reckon our blokes would be?
Well, I reckon Scotty Thompson would have to be right there. He's certainly... I think in terms of clearances, he's almost the number one in the AFL.
Hasn't been in there yet. Well, this year be any different. But anyway, let's move on.
Brent Riley?
Ouch. Brent Riley, the half-back's been terrific.
Been a couple around the comp doing the same sort of thing.
Been very good. Taylor Walker. He doesn't respond to Taylor anymore. You have to call him John Coleman. So, it's been a bit awkward at training, yelling at walks, and he just will not pass you the ball.
He's actually slipped back to second, so he just got a little bit ahead of himself there.
Well, he hasn't been playing.
Yes, that's correct.
So
Can't kick him on the sidelines.
He said, I'm coming back and I'm kicking a bag. He said, we'll need extra luggage for Fremantle because he's bagging tons of goals this weekend.
Sam
Jacobs, you would think, wouldn't you?
Well, he's
around the mark.
What are Ruckman supposed to do, Bert? What are they supposed to do?
Head outs to advantage.
Head outs to advantage. Thank you, Joc. And he's number one. Well, Joc was very quick then, Bert.
He was.
Got to be on top of that. So those are the probably...
we missed anyone that's going to get upset? It is hard though when you see us all the time and you don't see every other team. But
yeah, absolutely.
And the midfielders is always about 15 really good ones, aren't they? And they can't fit them all in.
Sloaney's been pretty handy.
Sloaney on the wing's been very good.
Yep. Oh well, let's see if we can find another question here that makes sense. I'm not going to ask you that one.
That's not a blight on our Twitter correspondence, by the way.
This one's from the same bloke, actually. Jazza again.
Wow, Jazza, thanks for
Thanks, Jazza. We've got a listener. Good on you, Jazza. Why did you get rid of the rat's tail ponytail?
Well, we've actually been through this before, Bert, but it was from feedback from Katrina Gill saying it's horrific. So, in conjunction with her feedback, I had to get rid of it.
I'm going to change this question slightly, but Pete Nata wants to know that if the People's Podcast had anything to do with your negotiations.
Obviously.
It was a massive factor.
Was that the forefront?
I heard it was a turning point, basically.
Massive factor. The People's Podcast, as Phil and I once called it, it's a huge... you couldn't waive the People's Podcast, but...
I was disappointed you actually didn't mention it in the press conference. Like, why did you want to hang around? And,
I was trying to,
would have been quite funny if you...
towards the People's Podcast, but maybe next time, Joc.
I've got a bit of a question.
You don't let me do press conferences anymore, anyway.
Protected species.
Put him on the back burner.
Now, this isn't an Ask Danger.
I think there's been enough.
Great.
I think we're done for a while. Pre-match at one of the functions that Joc was in attendance at, Brad Crouch was the guest speaker, and we all love Crouch. He's going to be a superstar.
And
but there was a bit of a story.
He was actually a crowd hit. Despite being a quiet country boy,
very funny.
And
he was very humorous.
And he's relayed a funny story about how a few of the boys convinced him that Stephen Schwert had won the lotto.
Mainly Taylor Walker, apparently.
Are you able to enlighten us on the story?
No, this is the first I've heard of it.
Backfired. This is
So
why we discussed these
basically,
in production.
I think it all happened ahead of Crouchy's first game for the in Crows colours, which was
Alice
the
Springs.
Brisbane game against Alice Springs. And Taylor Walker was just sort of sitting back with Crouchy and said, "Oh, look at Schwerty. Geez, he takes it well. He doesn't give much off, given he's just won the lotto. Like, if that was me, I'd be screaming, jumping up and down, going, look at all the money I've got." And Crouchy goes, "Oh, really? Did he win it?" And Taylor said, "Yeah, about 3 weeks ago, won the lottery." And apparently, Crouchy for the next month believed him and just sort of said, "Geez, he handles it well."
I do have to say, Crouchy just seems to me to be the sort that's going to get that stitched up like that for a long time.
Takes
He's
it so
been
well.
stitched up a few times, Reg, and anyone that's listening that might potentially come to the club in the future via the draft birds, do not listen to Taylor Walker. That's the lesson out of it, because he talks more dribble than just about anyone I've ever met.
Now, Paddy, you've got to run off because you're about to sit in the spa
I'm about to sit in the spa at Australian Living
for a photo. The things
Has this
that
been
the
delivered
things that
since Monday?
the things that
Just
you'll
have spa
do.
installed at home.
Oh, yep.
No, it's a gala auction item, isn't it? And
So many people laughing at that one, Cat. No, we've got the auction in a couple of weeks, Berts, after the St Kilda game. So
and your old housemate, or housemate's probably not the word.
house father,
House father.
house dad.
Sav McGill's
Yep.
got you sitting in a spa.
Yep. So I'm going to go get into the boardies and sit in a spa for a little bit.
He told me it was Speedos, but no boardies.
Geez, I hope not. I bought boardies, so I'm hoping it's that. Yeah.
So anyway, so we thought the publicity would slow down, but obviously you're going to get another.
Picking up more traction, Birds.
Yeah.
Picking up more traction. Now, Birds, next week, I don't want to jump ahead, but we have an international recruit that's joining us, Joc.
Who's that?
An international recruit. Now, normally you can't pick him up halfway through the season, but next week it's going to be massive, Cat. He's joining us from Austria.
What a scoop!
Oh, it's massive.
I'm just hoping this doesn't get picked up by any media outlets and tomorrow.
It probably will, but he's joining us next week.
He's a mate of yours, isn't he?
Well, we've had some dealings together. He's very controversial. He doesn't hold back, Joc, but he's joining us next week on the People's Podcast.
I'm not sure we can keep a lid on this for a week.
Well,
There'll be a lot of discussion.
There will be, but
speculation.
I want to
Media
build it
door
up.
stopping at the airport.
I want to build it up on Twitter. Next week, Hans will be joining us.
Oh, it's just
coming.
out there.
Hans doesn't have a last name, but he's from Austria. He's an international recruit. That's what you need to know so far. Next week you'll get to meet him, and I tell you what, he's got some interesting views on football, Joc.
It'll be worth tuning into the Down the Guts podcast next week.
All right, Paddy, will you rush off to your spa bath?
Thanks for having me, guys. And like I said, I know I'm blowing it up. I'm blowing it up, Cat. But Hans, he could be anything. Absolutely anything. He's like Craig Hutch said, no. Don't talk to me about Craig. Shutzy, no. Rucci, no. I tell you what, Hans has his finger on the pulse.
Well, he'd want to deliver now.
I think you made the point. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, Joc.
Danger.
All right,
Thanks,
see ya.
buddy. Well, Joc, Danger's gone, but it doesn't matter because despite what he thinks, he's not the most important person. It's not all about him this week. We've got another very special guest. We've had the news that Matty Yencher signed on, and now another superb player for the club, Richard Douglas, joins us. Dougie signed another contract with the club. Well done.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's exciting. We'll see the guys are going really well, and it was a pretty easy decision to make to sign on and stay at the club. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, mate, you haven't uploaded any photos of hybrids on Twitter yet. What's the arrangement?
No, well, I stayed away from the Toyotas. I've got a Porsche in the driveway now. Actually, I got looked after with a 3 mil over 3 years, so that was nice. And,
Beautiful.
I'm happy to get a new Toyota. That'd be good.
Back in the team, you obviously had that hamstring injury and some really good form before that, but back last week, starting as the sub. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, was that your first time in the green vest, and how did you find it?
It was my first time in the dreaded green vest. Yeah, it's quite tough actually. Mentally, it's pretty hard to try and switch off from the game, and then when you come out, try and have an impact. But it's good just to get back in the side, and hopefully this week I can be in the 21 and play more of a role. But it was good just to get back and and play a game after a bit of a stint off.
Expecting a big clash against Freo?
Yeah, it's going to be huge. I think if we can win on Saturday, it'll put us in a really strong position. 8-2, I think it'll be. They're a tough side, really strong defensively. There's been a lot of talk about the way they play, but you've seen this year they've been really hard to beat and been really competitive, so it's going to be a really good challenge for us.
There's been a lot of talk this week, obviously, with Danger's contract about the go-home factor. You're obviously a Victorian boy as well. Does that play into your considerations? You've been here, I think it's your 7th year at the club now. Is this like home now, or does that still weigh into your decision-making?
You still think about it. You obviously never stop missing home. I think the longer you're certainly away, though, it tends to get easier. You build stronger relationships and friends here, so I've got some good ties at the club and love the club now, so and as well as the team's going really well, there's no reason why I should leave. Obviously parents and brothers and sisters are still back home, and they come over a little bit when they can, but I'm certainly really enjoy here in Adelaide and was keen to stay.
Now, you had about 6 weeks off with a hamstring injury. How tough was that sort of to work on your fitness and get yourself prepared without being able to play any games? Yeah,
it was pretty tough. I mean, I was I think the only guy in rehab at that stage when I was in there, so it's not much fun running around with Matty Bowden and the rehab staff, so it was certainly tough to try and push hard and get that extra fitness without, because you're so used to training with other guys. But I think I'm at a pretty good level where now I can sort of get back and play some good footy and try and have a really strong second half to the year.
Has your role changed at all under Sando? Obviously we haven't seen too much of you this season, but a lot of guys, we had David McKay talk during the week, rotating a bit more across half forward and getting a chance to kick a few goals. Are you hoping to do that a bit more this year as well?
Yeah, it'd be nice. I mean, I've probably played a lot of midfield forward under Craigie as well, so I don't think it'll change too much. There's a few subtle differences in the roles, but I think now we've got a lot of depth that goes through the midfield, so I guess I'm just one of those 9 or 10 players that can roll up through there and play forward as well.
You've got your 100-game milestone coming up in a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
that'll be a nice one to get to.
Yeah, it's sort of stalled a bit. I got a bit in the nervous 90s the last year, so hopefully I can bring it up after the bye against the Saints. I think it's on a Friday night. It'd be pretty special. So it's certainly something you always dream about, playing 100 games. But if I can get there, it'd certainly be nice.
Thanks for coming in, mate. We think you're bigger news this week than Danger, so congrats on the signing and give him plenty of stick.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Danny.
Thanks for listening to the official podcast of the Adelaide Football Club.